The train station clock struck 10:47 p.m. as the loudspeaker announced words that instantly filled the crowded terminal with panic. Due to a powerful snowstorm, only one final train would leave before the railway shut down until morning. Hundreds of exhausted travelers rushed toward the ticket counter, but there was only one seat left. Daniel Parker had reached the front of the line just in time. That ticket was his only chance to reach his father's hospital before sunrise. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a young woman desperately pleading with the station clerk, clutching an old suitcase while tears streamed down her face. Her hands trembled as she realized she was only a few dollars short. Without thinking twice, Daniel bought the last ticket, and instead of keeping it, quietly placed it into the stranger's hands. He watched her disappear toward the platform, believing he would never see her again. What he didn't know was that one simple act of kindness would leave him stranded in a snow-covered town, and lead him to a family that would change his life forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change someone's destiny, please like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. As the train pulled away into the freezing night, Daniel stood alone on the nearly empty platform with nothing but his backpack and growing regret. His father had suffered a heart attack 2 days earlier, and doctors weren't sure how much time remained. Daniel had promised himself he would make it before morning, but now that promise seemed impossible to keep. Every hotel within walking distance was fully booked because thousands of passengers had been stranded by the storm. The icy wind swept through the station, and Daniel accepted that he would probably spend the night sitting on a hard wooden bench, hoping the weather cleared by sunrise. Yet despite the disappointment filling his heart, he couldn't convince himself that giving away the ticket had been the wrong decision. There had been something about the young woman's frightened eyes that reminded him of his younger sister, who had passed away years before. Some acts of kindness simply happen before the mind has time to argue with the heart. Almost an hour later, footsteps echoed through the nearly deserted station. Daniel looked up in surprise as the same young woman hurried back toward him, wrapped in a thick scarf dusted with fresh snow. Her name was Emily Carter. The train had traveled only one stop before railway officials announced that heavy snowfall had blocked the tracks ahead, forcing everyone to leave. Since the journey couldn't continue until morning, Emily had returned to the station hoping to find the man who had sacrificed his own journey for hers. When she learned Daniel had nowhere to stay, she insisted he spend the night at her family's farmhouse just outside town. At first, Daniel politely refused. Accepting hospitality from complete strangers felt uncomfortable. But Emily's quiet determination and the freezing weather left him little choice. Their drive through the countryside felt almost magical. Snowflakes drifted beneath the headlights while endless white fields stretched toward dark forests glowing under the moonlight. After nearly 30 minutes, they arrived at a modest farmhouse surrounded by tall pine trees covered in fresh snow. Warm golden light spilled from every window, and smoke curled gently from the chimney into the silent night. Before Daniel could even explain who he was, Emily's parents welcomed him with genuine smiles, offering dry clothes, hot coffee, and a place beside the fireplace. There were no suspicious questions or awkward silence. Instead, they treated him as though he had always belonged there. The aroma of homemade chicken soup filled the kitchen as the family gathered around a long wooden table worn smooth by decades of shared meals. Emily's grandmother insisted Daniel eat until he could eat no more, while her younger brothers laughed over harmless jokes that filled the house with warmth. Watching them together stirred memories Daniel had buried beneath years of endless work and loneliness. Ever since losing his mother and sister in a car accident, he had devoted himself entirely to his career, believing success could somehow replace the emptiness inside him. Sitting in that cozy farmhouse reminded him how desperately he missed simply belonging somewhere. Later that evening, Emily quietly revealed why catching that last train had mattered so much. She had spent 3 days in the city searching for a specialist willing to treat her 8-year-old nephew, Noah, who had been diagnosed with a rare blood disorder. She had finally secured an appointment at a children's hospital several hours away for the following morning. Missing the train would have delayed the treatment that could save the little boy's life. Daniel suddenly realized that giving away his ticket hadn't merely helped one stranger, it had protected an entire family's hope. As snow continued falling outside, Daniel found himself sitting beside Emily's grandfather on the front porch. The elderly man spoke softly about the invisible threads connecting strangers. He believed every person entered another's life for a reason, even if that reason wasn't immediately clear. He shared stories of neighbors rebuilding homes after fires, strangers paying hospital bills, and ordinary people changing lives through quiet acts of generosity. Daniel listened in silence, wondering whether fate had somehow guided him to this family for reasons greater than missing one train. Before sunrise, Daniel's phone rang. His heart sank as he prepared for the worst. Instead, the doctor delivered unexpected news. His father's condition had stabilized during the night after responding remarkably well to emergency treatment. Surgery had been successful, and doctors expected a full recovery. Relief flooded Daniel's heart so powerfully that tears filled his eyes. Emily's family celebrated with him as though his father were one of their own. At that moment, he realized genuine compassion didn't require shared blood or lifelong friendships. Sometimes complete strangers carried each other's burdens without expecting anything in return. The following morning, Emily's nephew successfully reached the children's hospital just in time for the appointment that doctors later credited with saving his life. Weeks afterward, Daniel visited the Carter family again, bringing his recovering father along. The two families quickly formed an unbreakable friendship. Holidays were celebrated together, birthdays became shared occasions, and every winter Daniel returned to the farmhouse where one unexpected night had transformed everything he believed about kindness. He eventually left the exhausting corporate job that had consumed his life and founded a nonprofit organization helping stranded travelers find emergency shelter, food, and transportation during severe weather. Every volunteer knew the story that had inspired it all, a single train ticket freely given away without expecting anything in return. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to the channel. Every act of support helps us share more true-to-life stories that remind the world kindness still exists. Before we finish, tell us in the comments, if you had the last train ticket, would you give it to a stranger? We'd truly love to hear your answer. Years later, Daniel often smiled whenever he passed through that same train station. People remembered the snowstorm as a night of delays, frustration, and disappointment. But to him, it would always be remembered as the night one small sacrifice opened the door to a second family he never knew he needed. The ticket he gave away was worth only a few dollars, yet its true value could never be measured. It carried hope to a frightened family, restored faith to a lonely heart, and proved that the greatest journeys in life don't always begin when we board the train we plan to take. Sometimes, they begin the moment we choose someone else's happiness over our own, discovering that kindness has an extraordinary way of bringing us exactly where we were always meant to be.